regular standard, regular warm-up Qigong exercises, and then we're going to explore the art of Xing Yi in a little bit more detail and actually go through, spend a fair amount of time on it and review all of the 5 element forms. I really like the 5 element forms because it's a pretty simple construct as a basis for a very potent fighting system. And when it's practiced, it really is a method or practice to improve ambidexterity, because all of the movements are done the 2 hands using left-handed and right-handed movements, one following the other. And so it's really good training, sort of like juggling is good training for improving our ability to move in a left-handed and right-handed fashion, and in that way become more balanced with ourselves. Okay, so that's one of the nice things about Xing Yi. In Tai Chi, you have the same thing, but it takes longer to get there because you're going through the set in one direction, and then when you finish, you go through the set in the other direction. So in general, a left-handed move isn't followed by the same right-handed move. Sometimes it doesn't have that feature. For example, single whip is more of a it's the directions are equal. So because the movement is out and then spread out like this, and so there's essentially only one way to do it. But in Xing Yi, you've got these movements that are following each other in mirror images right away. So that feeling of ambidextrous feeling is get reinforced really quickly. And so Xing Yi itself is also very simple compared to Tai Chi. It's said that if you practice Xing Yi seriously for 6 months, you can very effectively use it in combat. Whereas in Tai Chi, you have to practice for at least 10 years or longer with a single teacher to become adept at using it and putting it into practice. Tai Chi is much more subtle and sophisticated than Xing Yi. So it has some benefits in terms of martial applicability, because, as I say, it can be used very quickly after learning just a few concepts. Okay, so with that introduction, let's get started. Let's take a nice deep breath, scooping up a big heap of energy from the earth, bringing it overhead and bringing it down. And one more. And let's come up, arms straight out, fingers pointing down. Turn the palms over, fingers pointing up, push down. Let me just adjust my screen a little bit here. Okay, thank you. Let's try it again, come up, push down. One more up. Pull the hands in and pull. Breathe in. Exhale, push out. Turn the hands pointing toward each other. Pull back all the way. Arms straight out. And push in again. Let's repeat the cycle. In. Out. Extend. Contract. Close. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And come down. Turn the hands over and push down. So notice when you do these movements, you want to maintain a kind of circular motif in your hands and your arms. You try not to constrict your movements by pulling your elbows in. You want to feel, when you're doing these, an expansive feeling. And that gives you more of a feeling of empowerment. Allows the energy to flow much more. Okay. In a more fluid way. And if you do these in a kind of contracted motion, often you'll see people doing Tai Chi with this kind of contracted form, which is incorrect because it's going to impede the flow of energy in your body. And this is called pong. This roundness is called pong. And if you look at it from a functional rather than emotional aspect, a round shape has more, not only more power, but more structure. The more structure is more stable, which makes it more difficult for somebody to fold in on you and control you. So if your body has this barrel-like shape, it has more structure, more solidity or solidarity. Okay, so let's bring our hands up and open and close. This open and close is one of the features of Sun style. You'll see this done in the set from time to time. It's usually done as a transition between two movements that are very different. And we then fold or rotate the hands opposite each other. So one hand is going counterclockwise, the other is going clockwise. And we turn and pull over to the side, look at that hand, blocking down with the other hand. And come back to the other side. Again, try to feel that full form. Okay, feel the fullness of the movement. Don't get too far out with this. You don't want to become too expansive. All right, so there's this happy medium between being too contracted and too expanded. If you play around with this, your body will tell you which one is right. Your body will tell you how far to go. You just have to pay attention to your body, which is all Tai Chi is about, paying attention and focusing your mind on the movements. That's why they call it an internal Chinese martial art or an internal martial art, because the mind is involved, intimately involved in the movements. And coming back, let's open and close one more time. And let's push up, rotating again the hands in opposite directions. We're going to push up and down. Sitting up straight. Try to stretch your tendons. This is really good for your spine. And notice how their hands come together, their palms are facing each other, and just as soon as they're facing each other, they start to rotate in the opposite direction. And now this next one is the mirror image of that. So one hand is going clockwise, the other counterclockwise, and then that's switched. And the other hand goes clockwise and the other hand goes counterclockwise. and open and close. And then open and close. Turn the bowl over 180 degrees. You can play around with that. Feel the fullness, the roundness, and the shape. Like you're turning a wheel. Slow and relaxed. And pulling to one side. Coming back to center, holding a ball and turning and pulling to the other side. Try to exaggerate the turning around the waist. Turn and look. And come back and open and close. Okay. And now from the open and close position, we're going to push to one side and to the other side. We've done this a lot, so let's see if we can get it straight. This time is you push out. It doesn't matter which hand you start with. I'm starting with my right hand. You can do it with your left hand if it makes more sense, since you're looking at me. And my right hand movements look like the left hand movements. So you're going to push out straight, the fingers pointing out to one side, like you're reaching out and smacking something in front of you on that side. At the same time, you're going to rotate the other hand around so the palm is facing out to that side, and jut the elbow back as you push across with the other hand. Now all you have to do is to remember to rotate both hands in the other direction, push and swat across and over and pull back, again, jabbing that elbow back, which is actually a blow using your elbow. So here is the movement, turning at the waist. This is a very powerful blow. Reaching back, turning around the waist, driving that energy using the dantian rotation, and the energy transferred from the dantian to the waist. It's a centripetal force. And then the hands are further out, and so the force increases the further you get away from the dantian. So it's like a merry-go-round. If you're sitting on the inside of the merry-go-round, on a horse on the inside of the merry-go-round, it's not going around very fast. But the horses near the exterior, the outside of the merry-go-round, are going around much faster because they're further from the center. Okay. And so the point is here is that subtle movements directed by the waist are transferred to more powerful movements in the hands and the legs. And that's why turning at the waist is so important in Tai Chi and Qing Yi and all the other internal Chinese martial arts. Okay, good. And now notice that as you get to one side, you want to start turning to go to the other side. So the motion never stops. It's not static. Stop, turn, and go. Stop, turn, and go. It's a fluid motion, like water, flowing water. You think of your breathing. You don't usually breathe by breathing in and holding your breath and breathing out and holding it and breathing in and holding it, breathing out. The breath takes on, if done properly, takes on the aspect of like a moving. Again, the analogy of water moving and never stopping. Okay, so let's take a closing breath. Come down. And now let's start down at the feet. We're going to exercise our feet, and I'm going to turn. bringing your fists at your waist, the eye of the fist up, elbow straight back. We're going to punch out as we twist and rotate, and as we kick with the other leg. Punching with one hand, kicking with the other leg. Nice and slow. Relax your shoulders. Two ways to kick. One is to bring your knee up and kick with the heel. Another is to just extend your foot and kick with the toe. So here's kicking with the toe. And here's kicking with the heel. And notice how the kick and the punch end at the same time. And when you bring your hand in, you bring your foot and your hand in at the same time, which is coordinating the movements. Okay. Let's stretch back. Elbows down and back. Okay. Good. And finally, let's work on our fingers. Let's displaying the fingers in and out rapidly. We'll do 50. Normally I do 100 every morning. And let's work the toes, and that'll be it for the exercises. I mean the ankles. So it's a little hard to see. Okay, I don't know if you can see. Can you see my foot? All right, good. So I'm just picking my heel up and rotating the ankle back and forth on the toe. Now put your foot down and rock back and forth. And here we go, the other foot. Same thing. Rock back and forth, side to side. Now, another good one to do is that I like to do, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but I'm just rotating around the fulcrum of the ankle clockwise. So I'm just making clockwise motions. And now I'm going to go the other way. This is very good for your ankle. This will also help increase the circulation in your foot and your legs. I have a relative who's in his, I think he's 90 years old. And he's losing his flexibility. He's got neuropathy in his legs, so he can't feel his feet, which doesn't do great things for his golf game. He's an avid golfer still. And I've been teaching him these exercises, and it's just in a matter of a couple of weeks, it's really had a positive effect on him. Feels stronger, he feels more energy and more flexibility. And he can now he's starting to feel more in his feet, the connection to the ground. All right. No surprise there. All right. So Xing Yi. All right. So Xing Yi, I mentioned, is actually, although it's a very powerful form of self-defense, it's relatively easy to do. And one reason why it's easy to do, it's because it's only based on 5 principles, the 5-element theory. So there's really only 5 things you have to remember. Of course, it gets very, very complicated. It can get very complicated. Like when you learn anything, you try to, if you master something, the concepts are simple, but to do them well takes a long time, a lot of work. So, but anyway, you can learn it really quickly. So I've taught you all of the 5 elements in just a few weeks, right? Compared to how long would it take for me to teach you 64 Tai Chi movements to have to remember them in a certain order. All right, so you see my point. So Xing Yi is, some people say it's about 900 years old, but there's no recorded history of that. But the earliest recorded history is about 400 years ago. And it evolved from Tai Chi, which evolved from, just a second. Qigong. So the 5 elements, 5-element theory is a cosmological construction created by the Taoists that is used to explain all natural phenomena in the universe. It's based on 5 elements, and it's the basis of Chinese medicine. And it can also be used to make political decisions, to define people's emotional states, and almost anything else in theory. So at least that's the Chinese view of things, the Taoist view of things. The 5 elements are metal, water, earth, fire, and water. So the way it works in Tai Chi, not Tai Chi, in Xing Yi, is metal defeats wood, because metal chops wood. Wood pounds earth. Earth fills in or absorbs water or defeats water. And water extinguishes fire, and fire burns metal. And so in actuality, the way these are used in Xing Yi to defend yourself is, I keep getting a phone call, sorry about that. The way it's used is if somebody were to come at you with a metal strike, you would use fire to extinguish or to combat that. If somebody were to come in with a wood punch, then you would use metal to chop and destroy the wood, and so on and so forth. Now, it's interesting that you can look at these as destructive forces, right, in self-defense. But in actuality, each of the elements has a constructive feature to them as well. So there's some synergy between them. So for example, metal, it actually can preserve water, right? If you think about it, metal can be a container for water. So metal is called the mother nature for water, and that's applied to all of them. So, for example, fire is actually the mother element for Earth, because fire burns organic matter and puts it back down into the ground, and so on and so forth. So that's the constructive side of it. And then to make matters even more interesting or more complicated, if any one of these elements is applied with too much force, they can extinguish themselves and defeat themselves. So for example, if wood is too forceful, if let's say metal is too forceful, when it strikes wood, it can be dulled by wood. And so all of these aspects come into play in the use of Xingyi as a fighting method. And this is why, although the movements are very simple and they can be applied right away, to be really expert at it, there's a lot of interactions between them, and they have to be, for example, used with moderation. And it's really interesting if you look at what man has done to our environment since the Industrial Revolution, maybe even before that. You can probably explain it by using this 5-element theory. So for example, and I was just thinking about this morning, if you think of fire, how much we've abused the use of fire in burning things like metal in our forests and so forth, how we've disturbed that equilibrium between the 5 elements to a point where we're destroying everything. We're destroying ourselves, and there may be no returning to normalcy. So it's really interesting that a simple theory like this, if followed, has a really preservative wonderful effects. You can apply this 5-element theory to personalities as well. For example, people that are angry have a kind of a fiery type of personality. That can be good to some extent, but if it goes beyond a certain point, it can actually destroy that person's life and other people's lives. You can think of them, just for example, people that have a personality that's likened to the element of wood are kind of resistant to things. But if they're too resistant to things, they become inflexible. People that have water personalities are able to change and adapt to things. But if that gets out of control, then they lose the ability to focus on things in order to order and structure their lives, so they can basically accomplish things that you want to do and manifest things properly. Okay, so let's go ahead and with that introduction, let's go ahead and go through the 5-element form as it's used in Xingyi. So metal is the first one, and we go through this opening metal form. It's very much like the opening breath form that we do. We always do at the beginning of all my sessions. All right, the idea of just feeling like we're pulling energy up and collecting it in our bodies. All right, and so this is the way we are going to initiate the performance of all of these 5 elements, no matter, even though they're different. So it starts out with an opening metal, and the opening metal is bringing the hands up and down, pointing the fingers together, pushing down, forming 2 fists, putting the knuckles facing each other and turning the fists over. So we come up, fingers together, push down. When we get down to the dantian, we make 2 fists, knuckles together, and we turn the knuckles over. And now the metal form of this is to commence with metal. We bring the fist up under the chin and out. This has a circular motion. So it looks like this and out. We put the other fist on the crock of the elbow, We open the hands up, we block across and bring the other hand up, extending it out 45 degrees, turning it over and chopping with the side of the hand. So you might want to think of metal as having chopping properties to it. So the strike is chopping in nature. And that's how you feel when you do this. So we come up and down. Fingers pointing toward each other, make two fists, turn the fists over, up under the chin and out. It's kind of like an uppercut. Fist on elbow, open the hands up, block across. This is a block across in this direction rather than this direction. And at the same time, we come up inside with the other hand, turn over and chop. All right, now let's continue. Make two fists. Bring the other fist down in an arc underneath, up under the chin and out. Fist on the crook of the elbow. Open the hands up, block across, come up and strike out and chop. All right. Now the backhand, there's 4 or 5 different styles of Tai Chi. The form that I learned, the backhand, after it blocks across, it comes down with the fingers pointing toward the dantian and the elbow out like this. And so this is what it looks like if you do it sideways. So if I go ahead and do it sideways, I make that fist, I draw that fist up, drawing up, creating energy up and out for the blow, come up, open the hands up and strike, and block down. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Metal. Any questions? So it's a little hard to show. I'd love to be able to show you the applications, but you have to use your imagination. So if somebody were to come in and punch me, the way I would use this is I'd come around and block, and then at the same time come up over their hand and use my hand to smack them on the bridge of the nose. That's usually the place. Could be the top of the head. Could also break the collarbone if it's done properly. And it's actually in, there are some forms like Tai Chi within the entity of Xing Yi, where they're called linking forms. And one of them is bringing the hands up like this and out and chopping with both hands, breaking the collarbones like this. All right. So there are variations of course, there are variations to all of this. And you know, sometimes you might just block, and other times you might not block, and you just might reach out and do this. So let's go ahead and do the second one. The second one is going to be water. Now, water, you want to feel when you do water, you want to feel like it's a drilling motion. Okay, so any kind of a strike that has a drilling quality to it, for example, using the hand as a knife and going for the throat or the eyes, is a drilling feeling, right? And usually it's up, but it doesn't have to be. Most of the time it's drilling and it's up. So water has a drilling quality to it. And we're going to start out with the opening metal, coming up and down, setting up, two fists together, turning over, up under the chin, out, fist on the crook of the elbow. Okay, now we're set up to do water. Now in water, what we're going to do is we're going to open up the outer hand, just like we did in metal. We're going to block across and down, but this time we're going to bring this hand straight out. Rather than open it and chop down, we're just going to bring it straight out. And you can bring it out with the fist, usually this way, but it can also be done this way. All right. And so to continue, we're going to come up and into the chin and out, fist on the elbow. All right. Open the outer hand, block across and strike up. Again, this drilling motion. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Ready? 4. Okay, good. So metal chops wood, water quenches fire. Well, we are going to get to fire, but before we get to fire, we're going to do wood. All right, now wood, if you think about it, wood has a kind of pounding nature to it. And that's the feeling that you have when you use wood. Wood defeats earth. Wood pounds the earth. All right. Now, to set up for wood, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take an opening breath. Come out metal, right? Now, at this point, what we're going to do is I have the fist on the crook of the elbow. We're going to do simply, we're going to strike out with one fist. Now, you're going to do this with the eye of the fist up as we draw the other fist back to the waist. And so this has this kind of a feeling to it, a pulling and pushing. And if you notice, there's a rotational aspect to it. Can you see that aspect to it? It's not linear like this. It's actually torsional. And so there's an ellipticity to it that actually generates more energy than if it were just back and forth. Does that make sense? So what you have here is the same kind of energy that you have in that exercise where we reach through the shoulder line and punch straight using a twisting motion. A twisting motion has more power than just a simple linear motion. All right. And this is the same principle. And now from here on, it's simple. We just set up fist on elbow and we punch across, bringing the other hand back, pushing forward. Fist on elbow, strike and pull. Fist on elbow, strike and pull. Now, another facet of this is if you watch carefully what I'm doing, maybe if I turn sideways, you can see it. When I set up the fist on elbow and I strike and pull, I'm turning at the waist. That allows me to add more force to the punch and also reach out further. And the hand coming back balances the force in that direction. So if you just did this, that's not as powerful as doing this. And you'll see this concept in Tai Chi and Xing Yi and Bagua over and over and over again, is things balancing each other, the nature of balance in making something work properly. All right. It's a very much a part of the yin yang philosophy of things in balance. So when things are in balance, things are at ease. And when they're not in balance, they're at dis-ease, whether it's applied to medicine, fighting, or even interpersonal relationships. Okay, so that's wood. We've done 3. We've done metal, water, and wood. The next one is fire. So fire has an explosive force, and fire defeats metal. Fire beats metal, burns metal. Now, I can't show you how, really how these are applied, but if somebody comes at me with a metal, I am going to use water I'm going to use fire to extinguish the metal. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to come across and block and strike. It has this feeling here, and it's very explosive. And again, it's really hard to show you this unless I did the 2-person form, where you see all of the interrelationships between these elements as they're applied to martial arts. But let's go ahead and learn metal. So metal, again, let's go ahead and learn fire. So we're going to start with opening metal, hands on our sides, Hands up and down, fingers together, make two fists, rotate it over, protecting the Dan Chin. At the same time, up, under, out, fist on the crack of the elbow, opening metal. All right. Now what I'm going to do is, let's see if I can do it. You can follow me. Is I'm going to make two fists, and I'm going to bring the fist down to one side. If my left hand is out, which it is, I'm going to make two fists. I'm going to bring the fist in to my right side. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to block up. Notice how I turn the back of the hand as I block up. I'm not doing it with the back of the wrist straight. I'm doing it with the side of the fist straight. Why am I doing it that way? Because if I do it this way, there's a lot of tissue here and not much muscle. And if I'm going to block something, if I block it with the back of the hand, I have a better chance of not hurting myself. So I'm going to block up. This isn't a strike, it's a block. It's a deflection. And as I do that, I'm going to punch out like this. Now I'm blocking up to what's called a temple block. This serves two purposes. One, it blocks. Second, it defends somebody from striking the side of my head because my hand is up here. And so the movement is like this. And notice how, again, you use the waist to drive that energy. This force is can be either to the heart or to the short ribs. It's usually the short ribs. So the strike isn't up, it's more to the ribs. Now I'm going to simply come back to the other side. All right, this is very simple. I'm going to block up and turn at the same time and strike out with the other hand. Set up, block, strike. Set up, turn, block, strike. Set up, turn, block, strike. Set up, turn, block, strike. And the way we get into this is through opening metal, right? And setting up. And once we set up, we just go from side to side. Now, what I like about Shen Yi is it's very adaptable to sitting. You can do all the movements in Shen Yi exactly the same way as you would do them standing up and moving. All you're eliminating is the leaping into these strikes with the feet. And so it's, like I say, very adaptable, and it's really good exercise if you're sitting, and especially if you don't have the use of your feet or you have difficulty walking. You get a lot of exercise by doing this, especially in moving around the spine and strengthening the spine. And it's also the movements themselves. The form itself is extremely empowering. It gives you a feeling of power and strength. And guess what? It's cardiovascular because Shen Yi is done very fast. And so if we speed it up, you can see how how it will get your heart rate moving around. Okay, does that make sense? Good. All right. If any of you want to try it, I'll watch and correct you. I don't usually get much of a response around that invitation, but
yes, you can correct me.
yes. And who is speaking?
Chad.
All right, Chad. Hold on. Let me. I don't see you for some reason. Let me keep going. Yeah, there you are. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and pin you.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Chad.
You okay?
Okay, that's pretty. Keep going.
Oh, to the side. There we go.
Yeah, go to the other side now. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm going to make, there's a lot of energy there, and that's really good. One thing I'm going to correct is your setup is fine, and you're turning at the waist. Really what you're doing is winding up. And just like brush knee, we turn to wind up and then we execute it. You're going to pull to one side. Now this hand here, now I remember when I learned this, it took me my Sifu had to correct me over and over and over again, because I was not thinking of this as a block. But you're going to turn the hand sideways and bring it up and across to here. Now, when you get to this place, I had another Sifu. This guy was really good. He was a fighter. He had, I won't go into that. Anyway, his Sifu was Chen Manqing. He's the guy that fought Bruce Lee. And they say, some people say he even beat Bruce Lee. But anyway, he talks about it. When you bring this hand up, it's like you're holding a horn. You know, a goat has a horn that comes down. Yeah, so that's kind of where you want to be. You don't want your elbow up, because that puts you in a vulnerable position. And so you reach across, you're sweeping across and coming up to here with the elbow down. Good. Now this hand here is not a straight strike. It's
To the angle.
Ways. And it's to the side. Because what I'm aiming at, if somebody does metal, it's a little hard to tell. Their body's going to be on my left. I'm going to block their right hand. And they're turned in a way that exposes their rib. So when I reach across, I'm striking at right angles to the rib. Now, this is very difficult to see without a partner. I don't have a partner right now, so I can't show you. All
well,
right.
I think of maybe a way to say that, if you were trying to give that to people, would be to tell them to cross their center line with the hand, because you're not center line punching. It's just like Wing Chun chain punching, but instead you're crossing your own center line here and hitting the short ribs, crossing your center line here and hitting the short ribs. Maybe that'll help. I'm not sure. That's what I saw when I watched you.
It's not always the case, but in this case, it's off center line because of the position. Because you have to think of it in terms of what happens before. So, like I say, this system is really beautiful because, you know, if somebody comes at you with a metal, you defeat them with fire. And when they come at you with a metal, they turn their bodies to expose their rib.
Sure.
And it's the perfect to block this hand. It makes perfect sense to block and then strike at the rib, which is being exposed over that hand. Okay, very good.
Thank you for the correction.
All right, yeah, great. And I really appreciate your bringing these points up. I'm going to remove the pin. All right. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Okay, all right. Remove pin. Okay, so fire is one of my favorites, and so now we're going to look at. I think we've done 4. The 5th one is earth. Now, earth defeats water. And the way you might think of it is that earth absorbs water or covers water. You know how half of San Francisco is filled in? The bay is filled in. They just took fill from the highlands and filled it in, and they created Market Street and everything else. So, so that's the way you would think of. So if somebody comes at you with a water strike, you would use earth. So water most typically is just an uppercut, right? We do it like this when we practice it. So these are all exercises, right? We formalize the exercise, so we do it without thinking, all right? That's the way we practice. But in actuality, I might not set up this way and do this. I might just come up like this. And that's a drilling feeling, and that's what the feeling of water. Now, the easiest way to quench that, to block that, believe it or not, is to push in on the elbow. It's again a little hard for me to show you that, but it really works very well. If somebody were to come up with an uppercut, if I reached in and pushed their elbow aside, the uppercut would miss. It would go in that direction. And that's all I care about. I don't care about anything but making sure that uppercut doesn't affect my chin. So if I'm able to push it aside and deflect it, then I've effectively defeated that move. So that's kind of the way you have to look at it. And so, but we're going to just practice it. So we're going to do the setup the same way, starting with opening metal. Now we're set up. Now what I'm going to do is make two fists. I'm going to turn the fists over. So the eye of both fists are up. I'm going to put the lower fist under the upper fist elbow like this. Now both fists are up. Now I'm ready to do earth. And I'm going to pull across and in, and at the same time push out and across. So this has this kind of a movement. It's a lot like wood, but it's sideways rather than back and forth. All right. So after you set up, fist under elbow, I have the fist up, heart of the fist up. The other fist is out with the heart of the fist up. And now I'm going to reach across and strike as I bring this hand back and around, and I'm turning at the waist at the same time. And so if I do the movement in this direction, it's going to look like this: set up, set up, set up, set up. Earth, earth, earth. Now, the other way to use earth is a strike to the kidney. You're bringing the hand in and striking across to the other side of the person's kidney. All right, so we've done the 5 elements, and this is really what I wanted to accomplish. I'm thinking of doing a video of this and sending it out to you guys, because you won't get this if you really like this and want to continue the practice. It's very helpful to have a video to refer to. This is a lot of content here. Okay, now let's switch to Tai Chi. We're doing Sun style Tai Chi. I'm checking the time. I want to teach you a new form. The last form we did was punch under elbow. And if you recall, it's set up starting with a single whip, which in Sun style is done this way. All right. And then what we're going to do is make a fist with the right hand, leaving the left hand open. We're going to turn around, rotate in 2 circles. This is a circular movement. Make the fist, bring it around, block or parry, and then punch under elbow as we parry across. So what we're doing here is blocking a strike, reaching around and punching under the elbow, again to the short ribs or the stomach. All right, now the next move is a series of 3 moves, all tied into a form called Repulse the Monkey. Now it's interesting that the form Repulse Monkey in Sun style is very different than it is in Yang style, but it's basically meant to accomplish the same thing in a slightly different way. This is going to be easy for you to do because it's very similar to brush knee, but the feeling is different. So let me explain that. In brush knee, we've done brush knee in both directions so far. And then we did brush knee to set up for a man walking, straightening out his clothes. So we've actually done it 3 times in the form so far. And all it is turning, setting up to the right, putting the position of the left elbow, if I'm going to brush knee right, the left elbow near the right, the left finger near the right elbow, winding up. And now really it's the feeling of blocking across. And this could be a grab, but most of the time it's blocking a strike across as I then initiate a strike in the sagittal direction. All right. So I'm blocking out the horizontal plane and delivering a blow at the through the sagittal plane, which is this plane defined by the walls on each side of us. All right. Now in that Sun style Repulse the Monkey, really what we're doing is grabbing something with this hand and pulling it across rather than blocking across, and grabbing something with this hand and pulling it across too, like this. So instead of blocking and striking, we're grabbing something and pulling it in that direction. And what we're grabbing is an arm. Again, this is a little bit hard to imagine, but if somebody were to hold their arm out, maybe you could try that. I don't know if this has worked, never even seen it. What you would do is grab underneath the elbow, not even grab, I don't need to grab, I just put that hand underneath this elbow. And then I put my other hand on top of the wrist or grab the wrist. And you can see what's going on. I can control you by just simply lifting up on the joint of your elbow and pulling down on the wrist like this, and then just pulling you forward and across like that. So that's what Repulse the Monkey is. The reason why they call it Repulse the Monkey is it's usually done in response to somebody reaching out. It's to somebody's momentum in your direction. And so the way I would use this is if somebody were to come at me, I would use their momentum by reaching across and grabbing the wrist, putting my arm underneath your elbow and just continuing to pull them past me by turning from one side to the other. And it's very much like this movement that we do as a form of an exercise. Grabbing something and pulling it back as we go back. And we're doing this in the sitting position, this exercise. But normally when it's done retreating like this. And that's another form of Repulse the Monkey. You'll often see this done in Yang style very differently. In Yang style, it'll be grabbing a wrist and pulling it over, pulling it in, and you're moving backwards as you do this, and then reaching out and striking. And so you're using that person's momentum to pull them in, and then you're putting your hand up against their face. And basically what does is break the neck. And this is the way the move that people in the old days used to use to defeat knights or infantry on horseback, is they would get them off their horses, and then they had all this armor on, but their necks were mobile. All right, so they would grab an arm, pull, and then put their hands out and use that force to break the neck. Okay, I don't know if you're interested in this kind of thing, but kind of might help understand what the feeling of the force is as you do it. So here's what we're going to do is we ended up with punch under elbow, which was initiated this way. And now we're going to set up. Now, normally this is done to the left, to the right, and then to the front. But it's just as powerful and just as easy to do and effective sitting and doing it forward. So we're going to do 3 moves and 3 Repulse monkeys in the sitting position, sitting facing forward. And so we set up just like brush knee, but imagine now that you're grabbing something back here. and grabbing something here, grabbing a wrist, grabbing an elbow, and now pushing it, letting it go past you and letting it fly, pushing it forward. And we end up in the brush knee position, but I'm not striking out and I'm not blocking. I'm just grabbing something and pushing it out. And now we set up on the left side the same way. So instead of setting up like this to drive, like we do in brush knee, I'm setting up back this way a little further to grab, and then pull across as we turn at the waist. And then we do one more, setting up here, grabbing, so to speak, but we don't do that actually. Leave your hands open. And we pull that person forward and across, ending up in this position here. So it's really 3 brush knees with the hands done in slightly different positions. And notice the importance of turning at the waist, because it's the turning at the waist that allows you to get out of the way and at the same time to be able to initiate the move by lending it power, giving it power, using the waist to generate the energy. Okay, are there any questions of Chad? You understand what I'm saying? You got it? All right. You know, you can go online and look up Sun Style Tai Chi and Repulse the Monkey, and you'll see guys doing this. And then you go like, oh, okay, I understand exactly how it's used, if you're interested. Okay, so it's 12:31. We didn't have time to go through the set. So next time, we're going to devote the entire session to just going over the set in both directions through Repulse the Monkey. All right? So stay safe, have a good week, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Have a safe New Year, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Bye.
See you next week, everyone. Thank you,
Bye.
Sifu.
Thanks,
You're
Sifu.
welcome. Take care. Bye.